Do we have official time for start of tonight's meeting?
5 o'clock?
Oh, it is 5. Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's that?
5:10 or 5:12.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Town Council regular session at 5:10. The date is Monday, July 25th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Could we please have the roll call, Dale?
Council President Whaley,
Present.
Council Vice President McAtee,
Here.
Councilwoman Eddy,
Present?
Councilman O'Neill,
Here.
4 members present. Councilwoman Fogarty is absent.
And if I could just comment, Councilwoman Fogarty will be here late due to work constraints. And the reason why we have changed the time for our 4:30 meeting starting at 5, which we're late, is because we will be attending the Tommy Brent Memorial Service at Theater by the Sea tonight. So thank you. Could we also just have a moment of silence for Governor Sondland? Thank you. And obviously in our thoughts tonight will also be Tommy Brent. Thank you. We have the approval of the minutes of previous meetings. We have the work session of July 11th, 2011.
I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 400. We also have the approval of the minutes of the regular session, July 11th, 2011.
I move approval. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 400. Would anyone care to have anything removed from the consent agenda?
Seeing none, then I move approval of this evening's consent agenda.
Second?
We have motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 400. Which brings us to licenses. We have a resolution granting a victualling license to Apple New England LLC, doing business as Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, 15 Commons Corner Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island. Application by Lauren Cortina, Executive Vice President, 6200 Oak Tree Boulevard, Suite 250, Independence, Ohio. And this is a new license. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Michelson. I'm an attorney in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. My office is located at 7454 Post Road. This is an application for a new victualling license for Apple New England LLC, which is part of the Apple American Group. Apple American Group currently operates 270 Applebee's restaurants in the United States. They're the largest Applebee's franchisee in the United States. And they're currently engaged in the purchase of an additional 66 restaurants, 8 of which are in Rhode Island, 1 of which is in South Kingstown. I also have, when you get to the public hearings, an application for a transfer of the liquor license. This goes hand in hand with that. In terms of the operation of the Applebee's, nothing is going to change. Staff will be the same. This is a well-established franchisee, as I say, the largest in the country. And that's basically why I'm here, if there's any questions.
Do we have questions here at the table? Jim?
I think we've straightened out the service area, which now includes the outside patio.
That's right, and I apologize for the error. We did survey, and when I originally put in the application, and possibly, apparently from what I heard, the previous application, I didn't indicate they have 7 tables on their patio where they do serve, so I amended the site plan.
Is that 4 per table, 2 per table?
They show 28 that
Okay.
they serve out there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions here at the table?
Move approval of license A.
Second. Okay, and I just want a clarification. We don't need to do the public hearing before we take this vote? We can do the victualling license. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Jim?
Are you a private company? Were you taken private, or International House of Pancakes? Who owns Applebee's now?
Currently, the licensee is Applebee's Restaurants North LLC. That's part of Dine Equity. Dine Equity used to be IHOP, and some years ago, I think I was here about 4 years ago, IHOP purchased Applebee's Restaurants. They purchased them all, Applebee's Restaurant, Inc. They changed the name from IHOP to Dine Equity, so that's the current owner.
Good. That helps. Memory's still intact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? We have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Second license tonight is a resolution granting a victualling license to MCT Incorporated, doing business as Cucina Twist, 2095 Kingston Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island. Application by Stephen Mara, President, 187 Charlotte Drive, Warwick. Welcome. Are you Stephen?
Good evening. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And if you could tell us a little bit about this here item on the agenda?
Okay. The Cucina Twist is will stay exactly as it is presently. I was the former owner of 100% of the stock of Cucina Twist and will continue to be so. It's just a formality with the corporate name change and tax ID.
Okay. And if you... I'm just going to read the second resolution here.
That's
Okay, we'll hold off on that one. Okay, comments here at the town council table? Carol?
Do you still own the other restaurants, like Pinelli's?
Yes.
Are you involved in that? And
With the exception of,
Twist?
of Pinelli's Deli, that's on Quaker Lane and
Uh-huh.
Route 2, all the other ones, yes, certainly do.
oh, so you own the Twist that's over by the Warwick Mall, and
Yes, I do.
but the post office that was closed in East Greenwich.
It's
right?
under renovation. It's going to reopen. We anticipate in the sometime in September. We're right now the interior design is being constructed.
Great.
Thank you.
Further comments? Kathy?
So business as well, I know you got some bad publicity that really affected you in the papers. If you just want to let people know that things are doing well, I remember that.
Yeah, they are. We have 17 successful years. We ran into a class action faxing suit that took place in 2005. A holiday flyer had been handed over to a company out of New York to send out to a bunch of zip codes in the area promoting Christmas parties and catering and things that they like. About almost 6 years went by, and we received a notice that it was a violation of a Telephone Consumer Protection Act, and the class action suit was it's $500 a page to send faxes out, and we had 8 entities listed on the page, and it was a suit that could have been between $40 and $120 million. So unfortunately, to protect the jobs and so on and so forth, we had took the advice of attorneys and sought to do what we needed to do to continue to provide, good food and good service, and that's what brings me here today.
Good luck with that. I'm glad that
Thank
things
you.
are getting
Thank you
straightened
kindly.
out.
Thank you kindly.
Further comments here at the table?
I move approval of new license B.
Second?
We have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Best of luck. Which brings us to our public hearings. I'd like to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing relative to an application for transfer of a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingston in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follow. This is a Class B victular liquor license, transfer of a Class B victular liquor license from Applebee's Restaurant North LLC, 15 Commons Corner Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Michael Archer, President, to Apple New England LLC, doing business as Applebee's Neighborhood Grill and Bar, 15 Commons Corner Way, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Ronald Igarashi, secretary for the bar lounge area, all dining areas in the patio area, and as further defined in a site plan on file in the town clerk's office. Said transfer is contingent upon the issuance of certificates of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fee in arrears to the town, the correction of any fire code violations, and the satisfaction of all claims.
Afternoon again, just for the record, Jeffrey Michelson, 7454 Post Road in North Kingstown. As I said earlier, this is an application by Apple New England LLC, which is part of Apple American Group, the largest Applebee's franchisee in the United States. Currently have 270 Applebee's restaurants and are in the process of adding 66, one of which is in South Kingstown. They are an established Applebee's franchisee. Nothing is going to change on the ground, and so they'd like to, with your blessing, continue with their Class B victualler's liquor license. There are a couple of outstanding items. The tax division has been applied for. That's typically the last approval that we get. We did receive a notice. I received it today of a problem with, I believe, the fire alarm testing. I passed that up through corporate. I've made the manager aware of it and also the area director for the current Applebee's. So that's Apple. It's Applebee's Northeast, I believe is the name of it. They're aware of it. They're working on it. We do have instructions to contact, I believe, Mr. Ballou. So we'll take care of that and whatever else is outstanding.
Thank you. Comments here at the table?
But does that have to be an amendment then to this approval?
No,
The
it's covered in the all town rules and regs must be complied.
Yeah, the fire code is specifically referenced in your resolution. That's why I mention it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions here at the table? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up for any questions from the public.
Seeing none, then, Ella, I move that we close public hearing A.
Second.
We have motion and a second to close the public hearing. Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. And do we have a motion?
I move that we have, that we approve the license with the specific statement, the said transfer is contingent upon the issuance of certificates of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and users' fees and arrears to the town, the correction of any fire code violations, and the satisfaction of all claims.
Second.
Any other further comments? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Best of luck.
Good luck.
Okay, our second public hearing tonight is a public hearing relative to an application for transfer of a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follows. This is a Class B victular liquor license. Transfer of a Class B victular liquor license from Pinelli's Cucina Twist Incorporated, 2095 Kingston Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Jonathan N. Savage, Esquire, as receiver to MCT Incorporated, doing business as Cucina Twist, 2095 Kingston Road, Wakefield, Rhode Island, by Stephen Mara, president of the first floor dining room, lounge, and bar areas, and is further defined in a site plan on the file in the town clerk's office. Said transfer is contingent upon the issuance of certificates of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes, user fees and arrears to the town, the correction of any fire code violations, and satisfaction of all claims. So do you have questions? Actually, we're going to, if you'd like to speak.
As I had said earlier, nothing at the restaurant will change. My attorney, Richard Middleman, Cameron Middleman, couldn't be present tonight, but he's in the process of just tying up any incidentals that need to be resolved with regard to the items listed in your last paragraph. And we will obviously do so before we know that a transfer could take place.
Thank you. Questions here at the table?
That includes the tangible property taxes also.
Yeah,
Or do we have to, okay.
Right, there's just an issue about the payment of the tangible property taxes that are due. The resolution does require payment for all taxes, and there are tangible property taxes that are outstanding.
Could somebody tell me, I mean, we can show up here at the assessor's office tomorrow,
Yeah,
collector's
they'll be able
office
to
tomorrow?
tell- Yes, exactly.
Anyone specifically that should be?
Jean Bouchard.
We'll certainly take care of that, Solicitor. Thank you.
Okay, further comments here at the table, questions? At this time, I'd like to open this public hearing for comments from interested citizens. Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. And do we have a motion?
I move that we grant the Class B victular liquor license with the contingencies that were read into the record.
Second?
To Kachina Twist, Pinelli's Kachina Twist, no,
No, Kachina Twist.
Kachina Twist.
What you're doing is actually approving new business item, public hearing item B, and as you said, it includes all of the contingencies that Ella read earlier.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. Our third public hearing relative to proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance as follows. This is Article 8 on signs, Section 803. Signs prohibited in all zoning districts as follows. The following signs shall not be permitted in any zoning district. This is B, flashing signs. Signs which incorporate in any manner any flashing or moving illumination, animation, or illumination which varies in color. This shall include, but not limited to, electronic messaging boards, centers, animated or intermittent, LED light emitting diode, type signs, digital programmable ink, and all other electronic changeable copy signs. So,
Council President,
I'm sorry, Dale.
I have one communication.
One communication, please.
A communication dated June 29, 2011, to the council from the planning board recommending the amendment as it appears on the agenda and incorporating findings of fact, consistency with the comprehensive community plan, and findings of consistency with the purposes of zoning.
Thank you, Dale. Vin.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Vincent Murray, the town's Director of Planning. The Planning Board formalized its recommendations in this regard at its meeting held on the 28th of June. The Board's recommendations were simply that they recommend the Council, following the public hearing scheduled for this evening, amend Section 803B of the zoning ordinance as follows, and that would be to delete language establishing a sunset date of July 25th, 2011, referencing the amendments previously enacted to Section 803, signs prohibited in all zoning districts under 803B, flashing signs. The Board's recommended course of action would clarify and permanently prohibit the use of flashing or animated light-emitting diode and electronic messaging board signs of all types. It is noted that the town's zoning ordinance has long prohibited flashing and animation and signage, I think going back probably to 1966. And the Board based its recommendations on its conclusions that changeable copy signs of these types are not consistent with the town's overall planning philosophy geared to the promotion and enhancement of our unique sense of place and village-based development pattern. I would also make note that the language proposed would not affect signs allowed under Section 802 of the zoning ordinance, which is signs permitted in any zoning district without permits, at 802K, which is signs customary to the operation of gasoline filling stations, to allow for changeable, well, gas rates certainly going up typically, and also 802L, which is digital clocks, time and temperature clocks, which are allowed to change as time and temperature change as well. As noted by the clerk, the planning board's recommendations were contained with findings of consistency with the comprehensive community plan and findings of consistency with the purposes of zoning per Rhode Island General Laws 452430, which is the Rhode Island zoning enabling statute. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have. The council may have. I would make note that 3 members of the planning board are here this evening as well. They may wish to speak on this matter. And so.
Thank you, Vin. 4 planning board members are here.
Leslie came
Four,
in.
Oh, sorry. I missed. I did not acknowledge Ms. Castellari. So 4 members. So.
Comments here at the table. Carol?
Vin, why would gas stations be in a different position than everyone else? I mean,
Well, I mean,
What's the reasoning
it's
behind that?
specific to, it's already in the ordinance now that there's an allowance for digital technology to reflect changing prices. So, I mean, that's a different section of the ordinance. This ordinance before the council this evening is specific to flashing signs, which is a very discrete aspect of the ordinance. And as I mentioned, it's been a prohibition on flashing signs. And the language enacted last summer really kind of elaborated on the existing text. The text, like I mentioned, you go back to ordinances in the 70s, 80s, and in 1999 when we had our last comprehensive rewrite of the zoning ordinance, that language that prohibition was in place. So.
but currently we allow for signs that are lit up, but the people have to change the letters, I guess, by hand every day. Isn't that what you go to, all the bars have the special of the day or the bowling alley,
Right.
Wherever you go. And my thoughts were, when we sent it to the planning board, that we wanted some compromise between what we had, which was nothing at all with LED, and flashing lights in Las Vegas. I mean, I think that was mentioned at the last meeting that we didn't want to turn into Las Vegas. But clearly, that none of us want to do that. But what I would suggest is if we could do something with the commercial highway district, which is the 108 area extending from the bowling alley down beyond Rody Joe's, I believe it is, and then again from CVS up to Route 1, if we could have the LED signs, but limit them to text only, changing once a day. So if people, these signs are supposed to be energy efficient. I think it's the wave of the future. I think if we could prohibit the brightness and the illumination of some, in some ways, that it could work with that particular area. Obviously, we don't want it down in the village of Wakefield or the village of Peacedale. I think that might be too much because we have that nice village feeling and area down there. But I hate to just prohibit 100%, like that's it, we can't do it. So I would suggest that as an option. Anyway, that's me.
Polly?
Yeah, we discussed this during the work session, and we all had the same feeling that Carol said, at least I think we did, that it's difficult to prohibit something that is becoming popular and a more effective way perhaps to advertise. And yet it can be done in such a way, the brightness of the sign can be limited, so it's not glaring and in the people's face when they're driving. We don't want anything to distract drivers. But we talked about it and we thought it would be unfortunate to limit completely some new method of signage such as LED.
Further comments here at the table. Jim?
Yeah, Vin, was there any debate on the commercial highway aspect of the zoning versus commercial neighborhood and CD, as well as the
Well, we,
special
at
management
staff
district?
level, we did draft for consideration a proposal that would have had a limited allowance of message board technology in the commercial highway zoning district, but, ultimately, that didn't come forward. But it was discussed, and there was some efforts on the staff level of drafting something in that respect. It didn't come forward as a formal recommendation through the planning board's discussion and work session process. But yes.
Is there any way that lighting, the LED lighting, can be sent down, either with visors? Is there some way to keep
Well-
this from becoming global?
Well, the technology itself is somewhat pervasive. It's really how it's used that, it's often employed in a changeable copy manner, so that brings it under the umbrella of the flashing signs. But technology-wise, I don't think the ordinance here bans the use of the technology to illuminate. What it talks about is it in a changeable copy format. So there's a distinction there. It may be a fine one, but a distinction nonetheless. There is technology that would allow for the dimming of the light, so to speak, based on the ambient light. As a matter of fact, the sign at CVS is subject to a use stipulation agreement that was developed in concert with the town solicitor and the building official in my office, and they stipulate the use, and it does dim that sign, and it also provides for a limitation on the frequency of changing of the copy of it. So, that is in place for one of the two LED messaging board type signs that are in the community presently.
But is there some technology to keep it lateral?
Yeah, I don't
For the
claim to
light,
understand, but they get into, the candelas and nits, all these are very technical aspects, but we had developed something working with an industry representative that is applicable to the CVS sign, and they have stipulated to it.
Kathy?
I wasn't here because I was working, so I was a little late. So I wasn't here for the conversation in the work session, so I can only, what I've picked out from what the rest of the council people have said, but I have only gotten from people that they do not like the LED signs in this town. That's all that I've heard. So I can't see expanding it any further than where it is. I know the businesses have talked about it, we've talked with the economic development about it, but I can only say from what I hear from the people who come up to me about the particular signs, and that's where I'm going to stand. I just want the rest of the council to know, since I wasn't
It's certainly
privy.
been a topic of
Oh, it has
community
been.
interest.
One of the biggest ones that I've heard. And people want to keep the small town feel, and I have to agree, that's what I've heard. Just wanted to add that to the record.
Thank you. Further comments here at the table before I open it to the public? Jim?
Yeah, some of these larger signs, Carol was talking about Casey's and others, where they mechanically hand change the wording every day. But is the background box always lit so the text message stands out?
I imagine it would be lit at night. I know the bowling alley has a similar type sign, as I recall, but I don't believe we've had any approach for new signage to the building official or my office in this respect. Of late, we haven't, since this topic's been under consideration, there have been no new applications, so to speak, to try to employ that type of technology.
And is this square footage used for the LED signs, is any of that subtracted from lit signage on the sides of buildings? Or are they separate?
I think it would be separate. I'm pretty sure, I know both of the existing LED signs are part of a signage scheme that received dimensional variation from the Zoning Board of Review in both circumstances, at Wakefield Prescription and also at CVS. Both of those entities have a greater area of signage than would be allowed under the current ordinance in totality. So, I mean, then, neither facility is undersigned in my estimation, so.
Carol?
I just want to put this in perspective a little bit. When I mentioned Casey's in the work session, I do notice that sign is up on the hill, and I have heard in the winter with the snow, it's very difficult to put somebody on the ladder and get up there and change the wording. So I can understand the rationale behind a business owner wanting to press a button from inside and change the daily special. Now, with that said, these lights are illuminated anyway. I'm not completely convinced that an LED light is any worse than what's already there if you're talking about, if we're talking about not letting it flash, not changing more than once a day, and controlling the brightness. I just think it's a convenience. If a business in town wants to buy one of these LED signs, which I understand are very expensive, I would think it might be a convenience that if they can afford that they should be allowed. And again, once a day, controlling the brightness, the background. So that's, I'm not trying to make it look any different than it really already does. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you. Before I open it for the public to comment, I would also support, only for the safety of sending somebody up a ladder in below zero weather. I mean, to me, that's an accident waiting to happen. So if there's anything that the planning board could do to possibly allow just that text signing within a building, I'd be glad to engage in a dialogue when we get it opened in the public. So at this time, I'd like to open comments from the public.
Excuse me, Ella, before that happens, I don't know if Vin could answer this, but was there any talk about per case, special use permit per case issues, particularly in commercial highway?
I'm certainly on a staff level, and I think when we had done some drafting that wasn't embraced, as I mentioned, I think we would, I mean, there's always a consideration whether it's a use by right or a use by special use permit. The special use permit process obviously involves the zoning board, but it can also address individual circumstances, speaking generally then of by right and promote a better fit for, again, the general special use permit criteria. It provides a little higher level of review, so.
Okay, Jim?
Thank you. Thank you, Vin.
Okay. Welcome. Hi.
Madam President, members of the council, my name is Myrna George. I'm President and CEO of South County Tourism Council. And as you know, tourism is probably our second or our fourth leading economic engine in the state of Rhode Island, certainly in the southern portion of the state. Depends on whether you're counting jobs or you're counting hotel tax revenues. But we do know that tourism is a continuing to grow revenue stream for the state of Rhode Island. It is funded purely by out-of-state tax dollars. It's not funded by property tax dollars. As a matter of fact, tourism returns to each and every property owner $1,349 per year less in property taxes because directly resulting from tourism revenues. That's a very substantial number, and it will probably continue to grow. I stand before you not to confuse your deliberations, but to hopefully give you some idea of what our visitors are looking for. And our visitors are coming here, and because this is our backyard, sometimes we don't always see it the way other people see it, but we know we are continuing to grow, and people are coming here because we are not overlit, overdeveloped, and overpopulated. We are a slower pace. We are a unique sense of place, as your planning board has said. And as a result of that, people do come looking not for the banality of where they come from, over-macadamed, overlit areas, but we have research here in South County that clearly indicates not only are they coming for the beaches, they are coming for the scenic beauty that we all enjoy and sometimes don't always see. We have become a real economic engine and will continue to grow. And I can only hope that those authentic places that we call home, we will continue to have our visitors enjoy and continue to come. If we begin to look like every place USA, then they will stop coming. And then, while I'm here, I just want to give you a few other numbers so you've got them all. Tourism expenditures in Rhode Island are $6.8 billion. The average spending per visitor is $384. 1 out of every 10 Rhode Islanders owes his or her job to tourism, and 62 cents of every dollar spent by visitors stays in Rhode Island. Tourism is responsible for 5% of the Rhode Island gross state product. Tourism generates 12% of all state and local tax revenue. Tourism's tax contribution, as I said before, is $1,349 per year per household. And tourism is, as I said before, the fourth and second largest industry in the state, depending upon how you're counting. And approximately 41% of all Rhode Island revenue for restaurants comes from tourism. So I think those are substantial numbers, and I think that visitors are finding us and have found us and will continue to do so. And I wish you much success in your deliberations.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richard Youngkin. This is pretty live. Can you hear me all right? I'm a resident of Peacedale, and actually have been for almost all of my life, some 50 years or more. And I'd like to just tell you that in that great experience of time, I think that Dale Carlia, except for when it was just fields and open space, is actually looking far better than it ever has, except for those 2 LED signs, which actually can be seen way down to the north from Old Mountain Field as you approach Dale Carlia, the Wakefield prescription sign itself. So they are very much in your eye, and they very much stand out. And I'd just like to think, or let you think about how it would be if we had more than 2, if we actually had 10 or 15 of them in the Dale Carlia area. And I know that you are deliberating about how you can make them smaller and less obtrusive, but I say it's a slippery slope, that the technology is very attractive for people to advertise all of the things that they have for sale. And we know from our current experience in Dale Carlia and the commercial highway districts, and even in Main Street Wakefield, that people are putting up on signs. They can be sidewalk signs, they can be reader board signs, everything that they have to sell. And it can be too much for people to focus on. We've done, in my work with the Dunn Foundation and Scenic America, I have done work on what it takes to have good design in distinctive communities. And one of the things that comes back over and over again is signage, and the fact that there is a tendency on the part of individual merchants to compete with each other and to put as much signage up as they can. They'll put up banners, they'll put up streamers, they'll put up sidewalk signs. I imagine that Jeff has a great deal of consternation about all of this, even in South Kingstown. And what happens is that the place just gets too cluttered and too confusing. There's too much visual noise, and people don't pay attention to any of it. In fact, they avoid it. And places like Dale Carlia become exceedingly hazardous from a traffic point of view, and people avoid that as well. So I would like to echo what Myrna has said about our distinctive places. In my current consulting work, I'm working from here to Watch Hill to Newport. Everybody is talking about how distinctive this place is. The new Yankee magazine, which describes our beaches in South County, is a big hit, thanks to Myrna George and the Tourism Council. And quite frankly, it is our new economy. It's been our economy for 100 years, but it's our new economy as well. And all of our towns are working on strategies to improve the look that they convey, to attract summer visitors who have money to spend. It's a business, after all, and who will come here because it's so distinctive. And I've heard that this is becoming the New Hamptons. Not only do we have summer visitors, we have people who are investing in residential houses, building summer houses, the $1 million houses that are being built in Matunic Hills and elsewhere are a result of this attractiveness. And we have many more people from Greenwich and Darien moving here, and also our summer visitors from Washington and New York City. This is what they come for. They come for our distinctive look, for our sense of place, for the quaintness. Now, I'm a 50-some-odd-year-old resident. You know, I look at this and I say, wow, I never thought of it that way. But they are thinking of it that way, and that's what counts. I think that we have to be very careful, too, about talking about, and forgive me of this, but the zoning board, relying on the zoning board to police this. It's a very difficult thing to do. Signage and granting variances for signage, size and look has been traditional in many of our communities. And it's hard for the zoning board to adjudicate that. If you set a limit and it's, you know, where's the boundary line of the district? One commercial entity, one commercial zone is somehow not competitive with another one as a result of these signage regulations. I say you should be consistent across the board. You should not penalize any particular place or give advantage to any particular place. And these reader board LED signs give tremendous advantage to the big boys, the ones who can afford to pay $30,000 for them. They disadvantage your other small business people. And really, our community that makes it distinctive is all about small business. It's not about corporate business. It's not about franchise business, really. If we had all franchises in our communities, they would not be distinctive. What makes them distinctive are the small businesses, like Dove and Distaff and our eateries, you know, Phil's Diner. These are all what make our place distinctive. And I think it's hard for you to think of the Matunic Oyster Bar coming in for an LED sign. But, you know, it could happen if people get so competitive. So I would urge you to think very carefully about this. I am for prohibiting them, period. To me, they are not a new technology that is worth embracing, not at this stage. Maybe in 10 years we'll have a far more sophisticated technology that we can embrace. But at this current time, they are not. And they're certainly not great for our pedestrian areas. If you've ever walked by that Wakefield prescription sign and looked at it as a pedestrian, it's a mind-blowing experience. The colors and the diodes are too far apart to visualize what it is. You have to see it from a distance. So keep that in mind. I don't think you can really regulate size very well. And then in terms of timing, my favorite LED sign is actually at the University of Rhode Island. And I would hate to see Jeff out there in his camouflage and a duck blind watching that sign, because periodically when you go by it, it switches from a URI event to a Dunkin' Donuts advertisement. It becomes an off-premise billboard very quickly. And that can only be for like a flash, like a 5-minute or a small flash. These signs can be programmed to do just about anything. And I'll leave you with one funny anecdote, which we discovered through Scenic America. And I don't know if this is good for the TV, but I'll say it anyway. In Moscow, Russia, the LED signs that are up by the highway were hacked into by a hacker. And they put porn on those signs for about 20 minutes. And all of Moscow froze. So they are susceptible to terrorist activities.
Other comments from the public?
My name is Andrea Saracen. I'm a Wakefield resident, and I am here in opposition to the LED signs. I have circulated a petition to that effect, which had 82 signatures when I came in. It now has 91. I will give you copies. You will note that, I should say individuals and businesses, including some businesses on the commercial highway, including Belmont's, the Consignment Shop, and several others. Let me read you the language of the petition, if I may. We believe the LED signs recently installed at Wakefield Pharmacy and CVS are grossly out of character with our town, and allowing them is the first step in the erosion of the very qualities of our town that attract people as well as businesses. They should be expressly disallowed everywhere in South Kingstown, and the two that have already been installed should be carefully regulated to minimize their impact, including how brightly lighted they are and how frequently the messages can be changed. The permits for these two signs should not be renewed as they need replacing. We do not want to see LED signs gain a foothold anywhere in South Kingstown. Respectfully submitted by Andrea Saracen. And let me give you copies of the petition.
If you could just give them to our town clerk, she'll make sure that we get them. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Other comments from the public?
Hi, Leslie Schwanat.
Leslie?
Wow, that is loud. I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has said. I do concur with Kathy and Myrna and Richard, et cetera. I probably am not going to concur with Larry, though, but anyway, I think the purpose or how we really find businesses in this community is word of mouth. Now, I agree with the tourism thing, and I know that you can go to the chamber and you can pick up a lot of information. Tourists do pick that up. I also know when tourists come here, they do grab the local paper. They do find out what's going on. I think that if businesses want to promote themselves and they're a little advanced, we have the social media now, we have local newspapers. If they want to throw on an ad on the radio, I think that the Purple Cow has even used the TV at one point. So I'm saying there's ways to get the information out, and I think in this town, the best way is word of mouth. You know, we now know that Phil's is serving evening meals. How do we know that? Well, he's put a blurb in the paper, but we've all talked about it. So I don't want to see this expanded. And I also think, too, that this could open a floodgate. I mean, 10 years ago, you and I probably didn't even know what LED lights were. I mean, let's face it. So what's the next thing? I think we always have to be looking to what the next thing is. So I would hope that we would look at this. I don't think any businesses are going to go out of business if we prohibit this. Again, I think it's word of mouth. I think it's using the local newspapers. I concur with this woman. I have talked to several people, and they are not in favor of this. So I would hope that we would look at this and look at this, really think about it. We don't want a floodgate, and we don't know what the next best thing is coming down the pike. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Further comments from the public?
I guess it's time now for the arrows. Larry Fish, Chairman of the Town's Economic Development Committee. I don't think that you were provided our recommendations. We submitted them to the Planning Board to go through them as part of the process. I apologize for not CCing you. The Economic Development Committee, I came before you when the original prohibition was put down. When was that? Last July or August or sometime then, when we first put the sunset clause on it. And at that time, the council wanted the EDC and the planning board to go back and look at this particular prohibition, but also the entire sign ordinance. And over the last 9 months, the Economic Development Committee has investigated this as well as the entire sign ordinance. And I want to reiterate the entire ordinance because a lot of it is out of date. and not up with the times. And we have provided our recommendations to the planning board to them, and this is the only thing that is here today. So I was a little surprised that only this portion and not the entire ordinance, but we'll go with this one section. We voted unanimously to not prohibit them. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody because that's our job. We wanted to define flashing. I think that's one of the problems that we have in the current zoning ordinance and in this one proposed, because flashing or changeable is not defined, or could be defined in many, many ways. Flashing is, right now we allow the time and temperature clocks for the banks, etc., and they change every 5 seconds. When we put the sunset clause in, we define flashing as once a day. They could change them once a day. So no matter how you pass it, I think there should be some wording in here and not have it left up to interpretation, because then it's whose interpretation? Is it the building officials? Is it the planning boards? Is it the town council? Is it the town manager? So no matter what you do today or in the future, I think that needs to be spelled out so it's not interpreted. Personally, I think that the new CVS sign that replaced their changeable word sign is much less offensive to the community than the old one was, that they had to change by hand out in the weather. That's my personal opinion. I know you have a lot of other ones, including 91 signatures in front of you, that disagree. But I think they disagree more with the first one at Wakefield Prescription than the one at CVS. And I think that it's time, at least in the commercial highway, where you have all the signs, that you permit message boards that change once a day so that these people can push a button and be in the 21st century instead of getting out on a ladder and being in the 19th century. I think it's safer, they're less costly, and in my personal opinion, less offensive. They don't have to be bright, bright, bright. They don't have to be all different colors. There are ways of limiting that. The planning department knows that. And our Economic Development Committee is unanimous on this. I'm the only one that could take the time out of work to get here at the time of this meeting. So that's the reason why I don't have all of them here. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
I would just like to make a quick response to that. You suggested that the people who signed my petition really would have objected more to the old CVS sign than the new one, but that's not true. The petition specifically says we are opposed to LED signs, so just to make that clarification.
Thank you. Further comments from the public?
Good evening, council members. I'm Maria Mack. I'm the chair of the Planning Board. The Planning Board has had several discussions relative to signage, including the changeable LED signs. As you'll see before you in Exhibit 1, there is a very specific definition of what flashing signs are, and they actually have been prohibited for quite some time. The Planning Board, in its discussions, has considered several items. One is that there are many options that are available to businesses in terms of signage at this point in time: materials, textures, colors, and so on. Simply because these have been in place for a long time does not necessarily make them obsolete. I think one of the areas of concern was one of safety. When the initial sign appeared, the Wakefield prescription sign, I think most people were quite taken aback at not only the distance that it could be seen from, as well as the movement and the illumination. There's great concern that this could cause a safety problem. We know that in the Dale Carlia area, we have already had safety concerns in the past. I think it's important to consider what the cumulative impact might be of allowing these types of signs along Tower Hill Road. If you think about the fact that you could have more than one or two businesses and therefore more than one or two signs of these types, it would adversely impact safety, as well as the fact, as previous speakers have mentioned, the community character, the look and feel of our town. That is not only important for tourism, as Ms. George has mentioned, but for those folks who live in the area. So I think that for all of those reasons, the planning board members unanimously proposed this language that would not allow these types of signs in any district. Thank you.
Further comments from the public? Thank you, Maria. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the table. Oh. Hello.
Hello, Madam President, members of the council. I'm John Riendo, Planning Board Vice Chair, and also Brookwood Road resident in South Kingstown. Again, I don't want to reiterate what Maria said, but there were a couple of comments made that I think do deserve some additional scrutiny and some comment too. And in particular, I think Myrna George's comments I thought were very eloquent. This is a very unique place. As Richard Youngkin indicated, we have a sense of place in South Kingstown. And I think my own personal experience of traveling down south in April vacation week, where I went to Myrtle Beach, and I was just amazed at the amount of LED signs and how they stood out at you. And clearly, we're not Myrtle Beach. I don't think we want to be Myrtle Beach. We have no desire to be Myrtle Beach or any other place anywhere USA, and that, again, speaks to our uniqueness. Number two, I think from a safety perspective, I agree with the council. I am concerned with that one individual who has to change the signs, in particular in the wintertime, but I am much more concerned about the thousands of motorists that travel on a daily basis in front of that sign. Thirdly, I guess, and in conclusion, I look to Larry Fish and the other business owners that reside in town. I think they're very smart, they're very capable, they're very creative people. I admire their business, the way they conduct themselves, and I think LED signs is not a solution that I know they can do there's other means of doing it. And again, I think we've had the two signs that have been talked about. Again, they're extremely bright, and they've been toned down from what they could be. So again, as we discussed it at the planning board level, we didn't see any disadvantage for a business that did not have an LED sign. And again, it speaks to the character. Our points that were mentioned in the resolution, I think are valid. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. And we just wanted to, again, reiterate those for the council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President, council members, Ken Kennerson, Planning Board member. I'll be very brief because I'm going to repeat much of what you've already heard. For a planning perspective, a major issue of the board and myself was the safety issue. And clearly, I think a good point has been made this evening with regards to safety in the past that may or may not have occurred. I haven't read about injuries that have been incurred as a result of changing boards during the winters, but possibly that's occurred. But we thought that there was a significant safety issue involved in these LED signs both from a driver's perspective, traveling along Tower Hill Road. You go through past Wakefield Pharmacy, and as well as pedestrians. So we had a twofold concern there. We also had a real concern about the cumulative effect of working down the street from Rody Joe's, and that was an example of maybe a business that would actually benefit from this type of signage, all the way down Main Street and up Old Tower Hill Road past Casey's. And the major concern, and it's still a concern, would be almost a Las Vegas Strip type area, which wasn't reacted to positively by any member of the board. And it was a strong feeling of trying to do whatever we could to maintain the cohesiveness and the strong support for the small town feeling. We've also allowed the sandwich boards along Main Street. That seems to be working out well. And a final point would be, once again, the safety factor as well as the cumulative effect of this going down the main parts of our community, as well as some of the outlying areas that currently have no signage whatsoever. So all of that together brought the board to a unanimous consensus of presenting what's before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
Just 2 seconds on the tourism end. The businesses in town that might be affected by this, the bowling alley, Casey's, whatever, they're all small businesses and they all rely on tourism. Over 50% of my business comes from the tourism business. There's no way that any of those business owners or myself would want to hurt how our town is, how it's perceived, how it's looked at. And we don't believe that by installing this, we think that it will be safer for our employees. It would not affect the traffic. We think that the flashing of the date and time, time and temperature every 5 seconds is much more dangerous to the safety of the vehicles driving on Tower Hill Road than one sign that's lit to not to be blaring and doesn't change while you're going. I mean, there's no way that our livelihoods of anybody in this room, my livelihood would be affected more than anybody by if it affected the tourism like I think. It didn't stop Mr. Randall from going to Myrtle Beach, but it did allow him to where everything is, for example. I don't want to pick on him, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, the people are here, they're looking to where is the bowling alley? And it would be a lot easier for the owner of the bowling alley to change the sign inside than having someone get on a ladder. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? I'm going to go to Carol and then Polly.
Maybe, Vin, you could answer this for me. Is there anything in between what we have for signs right now where they have to change daily the letters on the sign and the LED with it? I mean, my understanding is that, if anything, the businesses would like to be able to do it electronically from inside. Is there anything in between these offensive LED signs and what we already have, or is it all or nothing? Can you answer that?
I mean, ordinance work could try to address some compromise, but and I'm sure there may be other methodologies to change text on a what now is a manual basis, but
I really don't know enough about the technology for signs right now, other than what's been presented to me. But it does seem like it's a big jump between standing on a ladder, changing the letters for the daily special, and the LED. That's the only thing that's available to...
Well, I mean, the way the ordinance defines flashing signs is changeable copy signs, and it's beyond LED. It also talks about electronic messaging boards and the like. And when that language was originally derived, we did look at other jurisdictions around both the state of Rhode Island and elsewhere, because this is a fairly hot topic in planning circles and regulatory circles across the country. I think we remember looking at Virginia Beach and jurisdictions in Texas, so it's not local to us, but it is the signage industry tends to be somewhat aggressive in pursuing their goals, which aren't, it's obviously to assist with advertising, but I mean, there's always lots of options, but I mean, and there's always opportunity to revisit ordinances. There's nothing static about ordinances typically. I mean, they may not change for a while, but they can change if a better idea or a better scheme comes along. I would add that when the last planning board meeting was held, there was a couple of members of the EDC in attendance, and there was some general discussion about the signage ordinance in an overall sense, and I think there is an agreement that it is, and staff I would concur with this as well, that there is a need to look at it from front to back, as the EDC has done, because it's, the building official would tell you that it's an ordinance that's frequently violated in terms of a lot of it, and he spends a good deal of his time addressing the proliferation of signage at some businesses. Others, comply. And I think a good example of collaborative approach in terms of modernizing our ordinances when we came together last year with a kind of a committee that developed standards for the sandwich board signs, which I think everybody, to this point, would concur that was a successful outcome. I mean, going forward on the ordinance in general, I think it would be to have an active dialogue among the interested parties. We could come up with an ordinance that is better suited to our community, and it was nice to hear the discussion, and at least from my own perspective, about the uniqueness of South Kingstown, which is something that is a long-held, cherished aspect of our planning, and contributes to our success as a community. So,
one more question. It says electronic messaging boards / centers. Is that what's at CVS and Wakefield Prescription? Are those electronic messaging boards?
Yeah, I think you could certainly characterize them as such, and they employ a particular technology, but there's, the technology of signage is changing frequently, like all technology, so it's not necessarily easy to keep up with it from a regulatory perspective, but these signs have generated a lot of buzz in the community from both the positive and negative perspective, as the council is hearing this evening. So.
But the changes that you're asking for on the flashing signs, which I think we all agree we don't want any flashing signs, but if we were just going to stop the LED, couldn't we stop there? You go on to say digital, programmable, ink, and all other electronic changeable copy signs.
That language
goes beyond the LED, it seems to me.
Well, it's trying to address that language is in the ordinance as it stands today.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that if no action of any sort is taken this evening by the council, the sunset provision goes away, and that additional language is deleted from the ordinance, that which is underlined. But that is existing language as we speak, enacted last summer.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you're going beyond LED. Would you agree with that we're going further?
Well, I think it's looking to try to cover the gamut of the types of technologies that are in that umbrella of electronic messaging boards. Primary among them, I suppose, is the light-emitting diode, means of display, and changeable copy.
I guess what I'm saying is, I asked you if there was anything in between
Well,
what we have in the LED.
I mean, there may be.
I don't know of such a thing, I guess.
Not off the top of my head, I do not know.
Polly?
During the work session, Vin, we talked about the possibility of sending this back to the planning board. I didn't realize that it was a unanimous decision on the board's part, but I wonder if Maria would be willing to take it back and look at the possibility of putting in some provisions for lessening the light, having the LED lights controlled so they would not be as bright as some of them are, and we would necessarily have to continue the moratorium. We talked about this and we thought we would go till November 14th. Does that make sense to you to look at it again and see if you could find some, as Carol says, some compromise that would not be as offensive as the ones that we see now?
I think that we could do additional research and see if there is some difference between LED and not LED. At this point, I don't think any of us are particularly certain that exists.
Or even that we can control the brightness of the LED lights. Is that something
That,
we would be
I would be very
interested in doing?
interested, if the planning board is interested in that. And is it also possible for the planning board to get together with some members of the economic development and come up with something that, we could move forward? It was very effective when that committee was established and we took care of the sandwich boards. That was absolutely a wonderful thing for this town, and we all worked together. So if something like that, and we could put a moratorium, extend this until November 14th, that would be something that I would really recommend. Thank you, Polly.
Ella, for a minute.
Jim?
A quick question, Steve or Mike. CVS and Wakefield prescription, they're grandfathered in perpetuity or annually? Okay, all right. Were there any other applications at that same time? Are there any pending applications? None? Okay, thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Any further comments here at the table? Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing and ready to make a motion?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 500. And would someone like to craft a motion?
No, me.
Polly?
I move that we request the planning board, we ask the planning board if they would consider looking into the LED lights and other lights, that we could limit it in such a way as to make them attractive for our town. And we request they get together with the EDC committee to discuss these problems.
Can I suggest you're going to need two separate motions this evening? If you're going to go to the one Polly just recommended, there's another motion that you're going to need also, which says that this amendment for Section 803B shall expire at midnight, November 14, 2011. You're going to be changing the present language, which says expired midnight this evening, basically. So maybe in terms of order, if you had that motion first, extending the moratorium, and then I think Polly's motion would make sense.
Okay. You in agreement, Polly? Just to extend the moratorium to November 14th? First motion?
Yes, that will
Okay.
be my
We have a
motion.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
I'm just going to add.
Kathy?
This is just kicking the can down the road. Again, I wasn't privy to the work session. I didn't know about the November 14th date being brought up, but I don't think you're going to see much changes with this, and I'm going to vote against all of what we're going to do, because again, I just think it's kicking the can down the road. We've been through this, we've revisited this before. The planning board has done admirable work on, and research. I don't think they're going to find any different type of lighting. I think you're asking them to do the impossible. I think that you have specific people in mind that you want to have this type of signage. And I go with what the people of the town have said to me. Sorry, Larry. Larry is a very good friend of mine in the EDC, but I think the businesses will survive. I think they did originally when this came in front of us, and the only thing that's happened is that more people have come to me, and including now even this 91 people on this list, who are dead set against this. And I think that the people of the town need to be recognized. It has been one of the hottest topics, I think, in the 9 years that I've been sitting on the council, this particular thing with the signs. So I'm sorry, Larry, but I just have to have that out there. Thank you.
Ella, excuse me,
Further comments,
is this
Jim?
motion simply on moving the date, the sunset date?
Yes, this is,
Yes.
Yes.
this
Right.
motion is
But
just
not
moving the.
Polly's earlier recommendation?
Correct.
Not
Okay,
yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Can I?
Carol?
I just think we need more information. I mean, more information about how to control the lighting, if that's at all possible. I mean, I commend the planning board for your recommendation, but I don't feel like I know what it was that you looked at as far as the science and the lighting and if it can be controlled and the size. And when I go in the commercial highway district and I see the lit up signs at night, I'm wondering how much different is it with an LED sign versus what's already there with the signs that you have to put the letters on. Now, I understand the two that are presently in Wakefield, everyone has a problem with that. I'm not suggesting that we do more of that. I'm saying, is there a way to do electronically what's now being done by hand and fit in with the comprehensive plan of the town? And that's what I'm asking for information on. And I don't necessarily believe that every LED sign is offensive. And I don't know, maybe they are. And I'm not saying that the two are that offensive. I mean, I don't feel distracted by those signs, and I drive through Wakefield many times a day. But I can see when the flashing sign can be very distracting. So I just feel it would be nice to have more information regarding what kind of controls can be put on this new type of signage that would fit with our community. And if that's, maybe it's all or nothing, and you could be right, but I just don't feel that that we have that information.
I
Thank
think
you,
as
Carol.
far as
Excuse
the-
me, Andrea. We've already closed the public work session, so my true apologies.
Can we reopen it? I mean, you're
Mike,
asking a question to
let me-
send the information.
Let me defer it back to our town solicitor.
You are in deliberations among the council, and you can't reopen the public hearing without advertising, so you cannot hear any more comment from the floor at this point.
Thank you. Okay. I also believe that if there's more information that the planning board would be willing to look at, and I thought saw some heads nodding there. So it's better to, and we probably, or maybe will end up at the same place that we ended, but I think gathering more information is absolutely it's of value. So we appreciate you doing that. Okay, we have a motion for the moratorium for November 14th. Did we have a second?
Yes, no, I'm not sure.
I second it. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? We don't need a roll call, do we?
No.
It's 410.
And we always roll call.
Okay. All right.
Now Polly, I think, wanted to
Second motion.
be heard on a
My
motion.
motion was that we request the planning board to study the LED light issue again and come back with with a suggestion.
And to work with EDC.
And to work with EDC, looking specifically at the brightness of the LED lights and can they be controlled.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Jim?
Yeah, I don't want to hold the planning board to an offspring of the LED. Maybe there's something else on the horizon or somewhere else. I just think the planning board maybe should review, which would include LED and other potential alternatives, but I don't want to trap the planning board with an LED offspring. So in other words, wide open for the planning board to look at. They could continue a no, but I just don't want them, yeah, here's the softest LED, and still be against LEDs. I'd rather have it all or none if it has to be.
Right. And I'll just reiterate the great work that was done with the sandwich board. So I'm sure that this great work will be continued. Thank you. Okay, we have motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstention? Motion carries 410. Which brings us to comments from interested citizens. I'd like to open up the mic. Mike? Is it beneficial for me to read the news release prior to?
Yeah, if you'd like to read that news release as part of public comment, and then we'll see where we need to go with that.
Okay, before there's any comment, I'd like to read a news release, which I'm sure many of you here tonight are interested. It says the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown has been made a party defendant to a complaint brought in the Washington County Superior Court by the South Kingstown School Committee against NEA South Kingston, NEA Rhode Island, as well as the Commission of Education and the Board of Regents. The complaint seeks a declaratory judgment from the court, asking it to construe the relevant portions of Title 16, Chapter 2 of the Rhode Island General Laws, which addresses educational reform policies. The school committee is seeking a declaration that the mandates under Title 16 supersede any other provisions of the law that would require the school committee to enter into any contract that limits the ability of the committee to make educational policy on the recruitment, hiring, management, evaluation, assigning or termination of personnel, or that submits the content or application of such policies for final decision to any person or entity other than the committee. The Declaratory Judgments Act requires that all persons must be made party to such litigation that have or claim any interest which would be affected by the court's declaration. The Town Council is the governing body which annually determines the value of the property tax levy assigned to the school fund. Consequently, the school committee had no choice but to name the Town Council as a party to this action. As a party, the council will be made aware of all of the proceedings before the court and have the opportunity to participate in those proceedings as may be required. So I just wanted to read that before people came to the mic. So I'm going to open the mic for public comment.
Madam President, Town Council members, my name is Ron Madison. I'm the Vice President of the NEA-SK here in South Kingstown. The tone and the direction of the contract negotiations is unlike any other time that this town has taken. Under legal counsel of Daniel Kinder, the school committee has started this town down a road that is expensive and destructive to what makes this town and its school system unique. We have a very good, and in the past have had a very good working relationship, and those relationships are put in jeopardy, both professional and personal. Whereas this council has direct impact on the school system monetarily and recently accepted a budget with a built-in deficit of $755,000 and has in the past been very supportive of advancing the educational system of the students, we are expecting that this council work to keep the school committee and their lawyer from creating an atmosphere surrounding the schools, school committee, and town council like we have seen in other districts. These other districts have been led down this road by Attorney Dan Kinder, who has in the past taken up to $1.4 million from the town and not even finished the job. And all he really did was leave a wake of destruction and poor taste and bad relationships in the future. So we just would expect and hope a strong, supportive nature from the town council on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the public?
Madam President, members of the council. I'm Mary Ellen O'Keefe. I teach English at the high school. I've been teaching in South Kingstown for almost 20 years. I've always liked to think of myself as a dedicated and highly qualified professional. During my tenure here, I've earned national board certification, 30 credits beyond a master's, while also taking advantage of innumerable professional development opportunities in classroom technology, differentiated instruction, literacy, writing strategies, among many others, all with the goal of improving my students' learning. Yet, astoundingly, the school committee, whose members to my knowledge have little to no K-12 classroom experience, in their unilateral imposition of new non-negotiated policies related to evaluation, professional conduct, and human capital, which I believe is newspeak for personnel, discounts my voice and those of other teaching professionals in regard to successful classroom practice. Further, the committee and administration's elimination of job security undermines the collaborative learning environment that not only has made it such a joy to teach in South Kingstown, but is also essential to the positive learning outcomes that characterize high-performing schools. The question is why? Why are the school committee and administration employing these divisive and expensive tactics against South Kingstown teachers? Both have maintained that the new top-down management policies are required by the Basic Education Plan of the Rhode Island Department of Education in order for South Kingstown to receive state financial aid. But Commissioner Gist herself has stated that these issues must be negotiated. Furthermore, neighboring districts have recently settled contracts without imposing similar policies. Do they not also have to comply? So why this aggressive and legally costly stance? Only the administration and school committee can answer this question, and hopefully the South Kingstown Town Council and community members will call for them to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Valerie Lawson. I'm the president of the East Providence Education Association. And I'm the firsthand experience that your member spoke earlier about. In East Providence, our legal fees are over $1 million. And this battle began in October of 2008, and currently it still continues, despite the fact it's been years, and we have court cases pending before the Rhode Island Supreme Court and the Rhode Island Superior Court. I would urge you to not litigate your differences and solve them at the bargaining table. What happened in East Providence and still exists has been detrimental to public education, to the students, the teachers, and the community. And I would ask you to reconsider this path you're going down as a community, because once it begins, turning back is a very difficult process, and we are years down the road. We have new school committee and a new city council, but despite that, we're still trying to rebuild where we were. So you have an opportunity here, and I ask you to consider that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Valerie. Other comments?
Good evening. Susan Kimmerline, town resident and teacher at the high school. I just think it's interesting that, well-spent time is given tonight discussing signage that's relevant to businesses and residents, and I think that a lot of attention is paid to their impact on those signs on the tourist dollars, but I think it's really important that we pay attention to the impact on the residents, and I think that really comes down to the schools. And I know you guys don't want to interfere with the school business too much in the school budget, but it's really all one team, one village. And I think the tone that things are taking and the direction that we're going is really just ripe with animosity. And I think you're going to find that, it's not just a local issue. We all know about East Providence, and I think news is going to get out that there's a lot of strife in South Kingstown, and I think you're going to find residents leaving. I think you're going to find people not moving here. I think you're going to find it trickles down for years and years. It's not just this one contract cycle. It's setting up a stage of, we know the economy is not going to get better overnight, and our contract negotiations may be difficult for years to come. But if they take this tone now, they're not going to get better, and I don't think you'll find that. I think you'll find in the impact of it is going to really be a long-felt concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from interested citizens?
Good evening. I'm Christine Hyde. I'm very proud to represent the members of NEASK as their president. I have little to add after what my members have said tonight, except to reiterate that you accepted a budget from the school side. That budget was created with a significant hole. In January, when school committee member Rick Angeli asked of the superintendent, what if the teachers don't accept a freeze and a 20% co-share? We haven't negotiated that yet. Her response was, on advice of legal counsel, when this contract expires, we can impose a freeze and a 20% co-share. Since January, we've been trying to get our brains around that. That's certainly nothing that has ever happened to us before. We came to the bargaining table expecting that to be a proposal, and it certainly was. We were surprised that the school committee did not wish to have ground rules that limited the scope of discussing and communicating all of both sides' proposals, and that has certainly happened, and I suspect will continue to happen in the press. Please understand that we have met their number with not one, but 3 different proposals. We are willing, in this climate, to make those economic concessions. We are shocked by how far the committee has gone against us beyond the monetary demands. Please be as supportive of us as teachers as we have been supportive of our children, the students of the South Kingstown schools. We're professionals, we're highly qualified, our schools are high performing and improving, and certainly that is something that has been a hallmark of pride in this town. I recently retired after 21 years. I had a glorious career in this town. I loved every moment of it. And even in the times that there was mild conflict, perhaps Miss Whaley, you remember some of those days, we were able to get past any opposition, to keep focused on children and families and do what was best for this town. That's all we want to do now. And I am pleading with you to use your influence to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? I just want to make the statement that the reason why the school committee is not, the town council is not engaging in a dialogue is because it's not on the agenda. But we've listened, and this always has been a town council that has supported education. So I just wanted to make that clear, why we're not engaging in a dialogue here. Is there any questions, or would Steve like to better simplify the news release? Or are we clear?
I think we drafted the news release on behalf of the council to try to provide clarity. The first conversation that was held today was on the potential for the amendment of the complaint that was filed last week to incorporate the town and the council. That was referred to Mr. Ursillo, and we were advised that we would be brought in as defendants within that case as a means of ensuring that all interested parties to the actions that were being requested under the declaratory decision were in fact available to be able to participate in the entire process. That's how it was explained, and in the afternoon the amended complaint was filed. I have provided the council with all of the information relative to the amended complaint as well as the documents that are affixed to that complaint to provide the council with full knowledge as to the extent of the position and pleadings of the school committee. I think that's the best information I can provide you at this point.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to come back to the table. Jim?
Steve, what you're saying, does this mean that everybody named here will be part of privileged information, or all that information with the contract negotiations now be public?
I'll defer to the solicitor.
Yeah, Jim, the parts of the contract negotiations that will be decided by the court are just limited to that which is in the complaint with regard to the declaratory judgment as to whether certain areas are management rights, meaning promotion and evaluation and hiring and firing, et cetera. The issues regarding wages, co-pays, none of that is part of this. It's pretty specific and narrow. And as Steve alluded to, there's something called the Declaratory Judgments Act that the complaint was brought under. The council was brought into this specifically under that act as an interested party. And it means that we will be at the table to hear everything that's said, and I'll be able to report to the council exactly what's going on.
Does that mean that we also can get whatever information there is from Rhode Island Department of Education as to how and why we are in violation with our current contract with the new basic education plan? I mean, what information are we going to be allowed, or are we just going to see everything here?
Now that we're in the court, everything in court is public, so
okay.
You will have all that information.
Thank you.
And, I'm sorry, Steve?
Jim, the information that I provided you earlier this evening includes the BEP documentation.
Great, thank you.
It also includes all of the information as far as the chronology as presented by the school committee. So you'll have that documentation.
Thank you.
So for further clarification, the packet that we received today has a lot of information, including the BEP. Carol?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We just received this tonight, just so you know, and there's many exhibits in it, including the Human Capital System Policy, which we're getting to look at now, but obviously we haven't seen it before tonight. So I can, certainly understand your frustration. It is a process. Unfortunately, when is the court date, Mike?
Well, there's a chambers conference with the judge Thursday morning. That's just with the lawyers. That will not be in public court. But from there, a schedule of hearings and dates and briefing, et cetera, will be forthcoming. And I'll report all of that to you.
I'm sure the judge will understand the expediency of this situation.
The judge does, which is why she's actually scheduled this. This is very unusual to have something scheduled this quickly.
Thank you. I mean, we also have received many of the emails. There's about 30 emails here that have been forwarded to us. Carol?
I'd just like to make one further comment. I believe most of us, if not all of us at this table, have been very supportive of education, and we certainly don't want, we appreciate the job you do, and we certainly don't want to see education fail in South Kingstown, and it's, I really it really bothers me to see the strife in our town, and I think most people feel that way. So hopefully we'll get this resolved. Try and be positive for a little while.
I'm going to continue with comments from interested citizens. I'd just like to wish our superintendent, wastewater management facility, Bernie Bishop, 26 years. He just recently retired. It was a wonderful retirement party, and we wish him all the best. And I also attended a Girl Scout Gold Award, I believe it was on Sunday, at the Metatuxet Yacht Club, and the retirement of Troop 307. So the 3 girls that received the Gold Award were Lee Finan, Emma Metrano, and Erin Morse, and the leader of that troop, 307, is Lou Finan. After 13 years, there were 10 girls there. It was absolutely wonderful, wonderful ceremony. And I believe Carol went to the golf ball drop.
Oh, yes, I was at the Balloon Festival yesterday, and one of the judges, along with Bill, our cameraman here, we were judges for the golf ball drop, which was conducted by the Chamber of South Kingstown Chamber of Commerce. It was a very successful event, and I give a lot of credit to Joe Iacocca and Joe Veely and all of those from the chamber that participated.
A couple other announcements. The Phase 3 of the bike path dedication is going to be this Wednesday, 1:30, across from MacArthur Boulevard. Parking is limited, so biking in and walking would be great. I also believe that there's a communication here inviting the town council to the goal-setting session by the school committee. I believe it's August 10th. I will not be able to attend, so I don't know if there will be other town council members that will be able to attend their goal-setting session. Any other updates here at the town council table? Okay, which moves us to town manager's report.
Just one item. I wanted to make reference to the fact that the Midsummer Rigid Plastic Collection Week is ongoing. What that means is that there's recycling available of rigid plastic materials. Acceptable materials include plastic lawn furniture, plastic buckets, baskets, plastic toys, playhouses, agricultural trays and pots, all of those different items. They can be brought to the transfer station for recycling. It's not a normal item that is accepted at the station for that purpose. We are doing it during the week of the 22nd to the 30th. So anybody who has those materials, they can get those things cleaned up. If there's no questions on the report, I'll yield to the solicitor.
Okay, nothing from the town solicitor's report. We didn't discuss any appointments, which brings us to I believe new business item F. I'm just going to ask the town council, is it best for us to send one member of the town council off to Theater by the Sea?
Is there a timing start here?
7 o'clock.
Pardon?
7 o'clock.
The actual production starts, or is there a...
90-minute production. It begins at 7, yes.
I would suggest that if there's no questions on the new business items, that you boxed items F, G, H, I, and J as a single vote, and we can move on with it. That'll close the agenda.
Thank you for the problem solving. Do we have a motion for F, G, H, I,
Make that motion.
Second.
and J? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 5-0-0. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries 5-0-0. We're adjourned. Thank you.